Every Thursday, we're trying to have a conversation on access to justice. It's called the STAJ, the social transformation through access to justice, is Chief Justice Martha Koome's strategy of ensuring that during her tenure, she entrenches social transformation by getting access to justice much easier, much simpler, and quicker. Today, we are going to have another conversation about another tribunal. We've had conversations about tribunals. Like earlier, we were trying to remember, we've had conversation with the sports tribunal, with the energy tribunal, with the political parties dispute tribunal, with the rent tribunal, several other tribunals that we've had. Today, it's about transport licensing. And the acting chairperson of the Transport Licensing Appeals Board is with us in the studio. But before we welcome him, he will hear the day's proverb by City.
Yes, this is a proverb from the country of Ethiopia. Cow dung cannot be gathered where no cows have been.
Cow dung cannot be gathered where
no cows have
been.
Yes.
Okay. So, apart from the direct translation, what is the proverb saying?
First of all, you need to understand that there's the direct relational matrix between proverbs and the socioeconomic livelihoods of the people from whence the proverb emanates. Ethiopia and Ethiopians are cattle keepers. They have cows. And they are many. If there was a proverb about horses, it would mean they also have horses. So when cows are an integral part of your community, things that you talk about, things that you relate to, come with cows. Now, cows, for the longest time, were not just producers of meat and milk. No. That's where the dung comes in. Dung, a key product when it comes to housing, when it comes to fuel, when it comes to manure. So, owning a cow gave the owner a multiplicity of benefits.
Okay.
Yes.
What's the interpretation of the proverb? Back to my question.
If indeed there are benefits, there has to be the originator of that benefit. Yes.
Start with the source.
Yes, there has to be a source.
To get the benefit.
The benefit doesn't come from wherever it is you think benefits come from. There has to be a source.
Bwana Acting Chairman McDonald Oduor, good morning.
Good morning.
Welcome to Kenya's biggest conversation and the hot seat of the Situation Room.
Thank you very much for inviting me.
Karibu sana. That proverb, when you listen to it and you hear City's own interpretation of the proverb, what's yours? What's your interpretation of this proverb?
Repeat the proverb, please, so that I can have a better understanding of it.
Very okay. Cow dung cannot be gathered where no cows have been.
Okay. I think it's very, very straightforward and literal interpretation can suffice in the sense that, for you to have, this one product, then you must have the producer of the same. But also I think, like he says, is that sometimes we look at other direct benefits. Let's say like for cows, you have meat and milk, but then there is something like cow dung, which is as well as important, which other people might think it's not important, but it's just as well as important for that community. So I think that will be my interpretation.
All right. Makes sense. It does make sense. Now, the Transport Licensing Appeals Board, what is it?
Okay, so the Transport Licensing Appeals Board is a tribunal. It's a board that has been formed by way of statute of the National Transport NTSA's, Safety Act, National Transport Safety Act, under Section 38 and 39 of the same Act. And basically, we hear appeals or complaints emanating from the mandate of NTSA, which is gives licenses to and registrations to people. So if you are aggrieved by the decision of NTSA, you come to our tribunal, and maybe we can be able to adjudicate on the matter and see if we can get an expeditious way of solving the problem.
So let me step back. NTSA, as we know it, you buy a vehicle, you apply for the number plate.
Yes.
NTSA.
Yes.
You want to be a driver, you apply for a driving license.
Yes.
NTSA. To renew the same, NTSA. You want to transfer ownership of motor vehicle A from person A to B, NTSA. Until President Uhuru Kenyatta intervened, you want to speed on the highways, and NTSA would be there dealing with you. Alcoblow, NTSA, those ones were removed, but it's still issues of transport and safety. So I'm just sitting back and wondering, at what point would people with complaints arise in any of these things? Is it that I bought a vehicle and NTSA have refused to register it, or they've registered my car and given the same registration to it? I mean, what kind of complaints would this be?
Okay, thank you very much. First and foremost, the powers of NTSA, you find it in Section 4 of their Act, is very wide, and the mandate is very, very wide. So from registration of motor vehicles to licensing, and also advising the government on policies issues dealing with transport. But our tribunal only deals with the licensing aspect.
Okay.
So people who get licensed, like PSV vehicles, driver's license, tuk-tuk license, now that digital taxis are also coming in, we are only dealing with the licensing aspect.
Okay.
So if, for example, you are delayed in your motor vehicle being registered or transfer, we don't hear that, because that is registration. It's not in our mandate. Our mandate only deals with issues of license only. If there's an issue of alcohol blow, we cannot deal with that. Our mandate is only restricted to the licensing aspect for people who get licensed. PSV vehicles, for example, road service license for matatus, their routes, driving schools, they have license to operate, tuk-tuk operators, PSV, individuals, your driving license. For example, if you apply for a smart DL, and they removed some categories of classes of vehicles that you are supposed to drive, then you can come to us and say, you know what, initially I had this class, but when I'm applying for my smart, they have removed it. So why have they removed this classification? So you can come to us, and then we can listen. So it is important for people to understand that our mandate is very, very restricted to that only one aspect, licensing. Suffice to know that NTSA has a wide range of powers and mandate, but we don't. It's not a blanket tribunal. We only deal with the licensing aspect.
So, McDonald, within that, then, under those restrictions of licensing, what kind of cases would come to the tribunals? What kind of issue would come to the desk?
Okay, so our mandate is derived under, Section 38, and basically there are three types of people who can approach the tribunal. One is an applicant of the license. So if you apply for a license and then it is either denied or you are given under conditions that you are not favorable to you, you can come to us. The second category of people who can come to us are known as the objectors. So, for example, if somebody has applied for a matatu route that is passing through your residential area and you are aggrieved by that, you come in as an objector and say, NTSA has given so-and-so a license to pass through Motaiga, for example, or Runda, or whatever, sent elsewhere. You say, I'm an objector. And then another person who can come is a licensee. If your license is revoked, then you can also approach us and say, my license was revoked, but I was not given fair hearing, or I'm aggrieved. So those are the three categories of people who can come in. So an applicant, where your license has been varied, an objector, and a licensee. Let's say when you are renewing your license and maybe you already have the license, or it's suspended. A good example of a licensee is when, for example, there's a road accident that has is involved one vehicle, and then NTSA goes and suspends
An
the
entire
licenses,
circle.
the entire circle.
Right.
So that entire circle can come and say, why suspend all of us? Just suspend the one that.
Yeah.
So that's a licensee who has been aggrieved by a decision of NTSA. They can come to us and we can. So anybody who has got a license under those three categories can come to us.
Allow me to take you a little back, because I want to understand this thing clearly. You deal with licensing and issues to do with licensing.
Yes.
How does NTSA determine how to issue licenses, say for instance routes? What is the criteria for determining this? I ask because if you are the board that sits to determine these things, you must understand these things.
Okay.
I thought you were saying that I want to come and see you. I will be an objector by end of day today.
That will come later.
Okay.
But I need to understand what I'm objecting to first. So this is what I want to
So
know.
you're building a case.
Yes, I'm building the case. I want to understand. When you have an expert before you, you want the expert to explain this thing so you understand. Yes.
Okay. NTSA derives its mandate to issue licenses under Section 29 of the Act, the NTSA Act, 33 of 2012, which says that they have got discretionary powers to issue or reject to grant a license after taking due consideration to the public interest. As regarding to public transport, there is also regulations, public transport licensing regulations, whereby it gives them other criteria they look into. So, for example, if you want a route, there's the minimum number of vehicles that you must have. All the drivers must have good conduct and stuff like that. So there are rules and well-down procedures in regulations and the Act, but they have got the discretion. Once you have already submitted, including you have to get a letter of no objections from the Nairobi County or whichever county you want to operate in. They must say that you get a parking space and so on. So there's an elaborate structure and framework under which they issue licenses, and you have to meet those criteria before you are here. So it's not an arbitrary. You apply, you must have minimum number of vehicles, you must have the drivers must comply, they must have certificate of good conduct, they must have, you bring all that list, you must get a letter of no objection from Nairobi County to say which route you are going to comply with, and once they have that and taken into consideration the public interest, then they're empowered to either grant or deny to deny you a license, or even vary it. You can apply even for a route extension. So maybe you are just told to come from Nairobi
to South B.
Yeah, South B. But you say now
11.
South B is always very crowded. I would like to go through another route. So you can even apply for variation. So there is a criteria that guided by the law.
But I think part 1B of CT's question, which I'd like to ask, is who determines this is route number 11, route number 33, route number 58? Who determines those routes?
You see, when you are making an application for a route, you are the one who defines which route you want to.
No.
Yeah.
But who came up with that? Who said that matatus will apply from Gill House and go to South B and come back using this route? Who draws up that? Is it the county government or is it NTSA's role? If there's a new, let's say, development and people have moved into a certain area, is it NTSA then who determines, all right, so we shall extend this particular route so that it then covers this other area?
No. The applicant is the one who you make an application. So you say, I want to if the route already exists, for example.
I'm saying one that doesn't exist.
The one does not exist. You're the one who's going to come and say that I want to get a road service license from Mombasa Road to, you'll define the route and the stages and the places where you're going to have the pickup and the drop-off points. You have to say. So you'll explain each and every place where you are going to pass and where you're going to stop, and then they'll make a decision on that. That's why you can get new routes. And so you are the one who makes an application, and then they make a determination based on your application. They'll not, unless it's already an existing route. If it's an existing route, then you can make for a variation. Say, yes, I apply this route, but I would like to follow to be extended to reach a certain place and so on.
Okay.
Yeah. So the applicant is the one who suggest the route, and then now you will have to get a letter of no objection from the counties. If let's say you are passing through various counties, from the counties, or if it's only Nairobi, you also have to get a letter of no objection from the Nairobi county, and then once they give you and you have got that in your application, then NTSA grants or denies, and if they deny, they'll give you reason, and if they give, then you are given a road license with that specification that you have wanted. Yeah.
And if someone is then unhappy, then they come to the Licensing Appeals Board.
They can come to the Transport Licensing Appeals Board as an objector, and then we can listen why they are objecting, and we can be able to make a determination based on the facts on the presented.
Okay.
When the tribunal sits, just looking at some things here, as the tribunal sits, so it's been determined that this is a case worthy of hearing, right? And then that we need to now see how we can sort out these issues. From start to finish, what's the turnaround time for some of these cases that we brought for? And are we looking at a huge number of cases that come before the tribunal on this particular licensing issue?
Yeah, we've... Okay, initially there's been a problem generally with all tribunals because of people don't know of their existence, and I think maybe that's why the judiciary is also trying to create platforms whereby we can have forums where people know about the tribunals. But having said that, we as the Transport Licensing Appeals Board, we hear 3 or 4 cases in a week. Yeah, but starting this quarter, there's been an increase of the number of cases that we hear. And most of the cases that come before us are in the matatu sector, understandably so, because maybe there are many matatus and they comprise a very bigger part of the economy. But the turnaround time, we are usually given not more than 60 days.
Okay.
But we try to listen to cases. Some of the cases are straightforward. We give our orders as they wait for a final ruling. But some take time because, they are represented by counsel, and some matters might take long. But we are given a maximum of 60 days to determine a case.
Okay.
But most of the cases, we try and give orders after 7 days.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So, as we look at... So there's the licensee, obviously, and then there's the licensor, the one who gives the license. They can actually come. I'm curious as to what kind of cases would a licensor bring that then the tribunal would need to, adjudicate over.
Okay, so in most cases, the licensor is NTSA in most cases.
Yes.
Yeah, they're standard.
Yes.
Because they're the ones who are giving out the license. So there'll always be parties. All the cases will always be against NTSA.
Yes, I would figure,
Yeah. Or at least there'll be respondents to the matter. There can be a different party, especially if there is an objector. So you have got the objector, the person who has been given license. But the license or NTSA will always be parties to it. But it's very, very rare for them to come to the tribunal challenge. Most of the times they are the ones who are brought to the tribunal, and we hear cases against them. Yeah.
Okay.
You have another question. I can see you have many before.
Yeah, because so if we're looking at obviously now the licensor being NTSA in many cases, then now going to the side of the licensee and saying that is this just... Do you see bulk of these cases coming from public service vehicles? And are we looking at a spread of across the country in terms of who has an issue? If we are, where does this tribunal sit? And then do people have to, if somebody has a problem on Busia Highway, and that's the routes that they ply, do they have to come to Nairobi if they're coming to lodge a case?
Okay. So in our application form, we usually give somebody an option. The matter can either be heard virtually or physically, depending on the nature of our clientele, especially in the public service sector. Most of them, sometimes when they don't even have the kabambe, or they have the kabambe and it's become very difficult. So we get cases around the country. I think I've been to all the 47 counties.
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 Yes.
Counties.
Yes.
listening to matters. So we go we sit in the courts.
Okay.
So if we have a matter in Kisumu, because we are part of the judiciary, we arrange with the people in the courts, and they give us a courtroom, and we hear our cases in the courtroom. So if we have been to, just on Tuesday I was in Nakuru to listen to a case. So we go throughout the country to listen to cases. So the person doesn't have to come to Nairobi. Once the case has already been launched, then we go. But nowadays we try and get as many cases in one place because of issues of funds and And
so it's like a traveling tribunal.
Yeah, we are required to go to each and every.
What would be the hindrance to having sitting domiciled tribunals around the country? Because we're looking at these issues, as you said, in all 47 counties. What would be the hindrances to having that tribunal sitting with representatives around the country?
Definitely, it's the issues of resources and finances. Yes. But we have like the cooperative tribunal, which has tried to have each and every of they are domiciled around the country. But we have had those proposals so that we can have like offices and so on and so forth. But of course, we have problems with resources and so on and so forth. And therefore, most of the time is that you have got the tribunal, but they try as much as possible to go around the country and hear the cases.
How are you financed? Are you financed through the Judiciary Fund now, or are you financed through NTSA, which is it moving from the Ministry of Interior back to Transport, back to... Are you financed through the NTSA structures?
Yeah, that's a very, very interesting question, because that has been a problem actually throughout the world as far as tribunals is concerned. So what makes the difference between a court and a tribunal is that a court is set out as a part of the state structure, the three arms of the government, and therefore tribunals are set up by way of statute. So like our tribunal has been created by the NTSA Act. So initially, the ministry or the body that the statute that's created the tribunal will finance it. So, for example, like us we will be financed by the Ministry of Transport, because it's the CS Transport who appoints the members and the chair. But there has been a move to take all the tribunals back to the judiciary. There was a case by Omtata 197 of 2018 whereby they challenged the constitutionality of tribunals being part of the the bodies that start them. But again, it's not easy to just move all of them. So right now, our finances is coming from the judiciary, although the appointment and the structure of the board is still determined by the parent ministry, which is now the Ministry of Transport.
Let's take a break. McDonald Oduor is the acting chairman of the Transport Licensing Appeals Board. It's a tribunal that looks at matters with regards to licensing issues, people who have a dispute with the NTSA and licensing. Whether you're an applicant, you're an objector, you're a licensee, you can go to them. Not at I bought a car and this person is not now transferring the car to me. Those ones, no. It's issues of license, like you've clarified. We'll continue that conversation shortly.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
The National Transport and Safety Authority. In terms of licensing, you applied for matatu license, for a PSV license, at TSV license. That's a tourism service vehicle.
School buses.
School bus license.
Breakdown license, border.
At a breakdown?
Yes.
Those things have licenses?
Yes.
Wait, hold it. Breakdown, those Land Rovers we see at roundabouts.
Yes.
Just ask
with a big chain at the caboose.
Yes. Those ones.
Yes.
Those ones have licenses.
What I'd like to find out is there a requirement that
yes,
exactly. Not just roadworthiness. Are there standards that one must have before you can qualify to be provide breakdown services? Have I put it politely now?
Yes.
Yeah, I think that will be under the mandate of NTS. I would like to talk about that. I will guess for you to get a license, there has to be a minimum requirement that you have to meet. for you to get. But even tuk-tuk operators, I don't think you can be able to
Operate any
yeah.
motorized
So let me just put it, that's a good question, because that forms the basis of actually tribunals in general. You see, the state itself is dealing with so many socioeconomic issues that are coming up on a daily basis.
Yeah.
So what happens is that the state turns out to be a regulatory state. So what do? They set up a regulatory body, and then the regulatory body comes up with regulations. So that's why you find the government will come, in dealing with any socioeconomic. If it's transport and safety, they form NTSA. If it is capital markets, they'll form this.
CMA.
Yeah, CMA. And therefore, those bodies make decisions that affect the people, and somebody can be aggrieved by that decision. And therefore, that's why tribunals are therefore formed, to form a way that is easy and manageable, expedient to address those issues. So anything in this country, you'll be so surprised that before you do it, you'll require a certain form of license. Although sometimes it doesn't look like it, because maybe if you're not in that sector, you wouldn't know. But even those breakdowns, as rough and ragged as they look, they do have a license.
What are those ones? The lorries that carry garbage in Nairobi. Those ones have license. And insurance.
Those lorries
it's called GSV.
You're not actually sure. Talking about
you'll need a
lorries,
GSV license.
Yes. But Eric, you have to ask yourself, those lorries, for instance, should they actually be on the road, or should they be in the museum? Because there is nothing young about those lorries. I've had occasion to see one who wasn't able to go up a certain incline.
Yes.
Okay?
Yes.
And I suspect it's because of the age. But forget the age. The state those lorries are in.
Yeah. We'll ask Sakaja when he
It
comes.
looks worse than the garbage they're collecting.
We'll ask Sakaja when he comes. Sakaja has said he wants to see, just a change even in how we do our business in Nairobi.
Really?
So, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I'm
Actually, you can
excited.
come in also to a tribunal as an objector. If you see a
so-
lorry, you just say, how does this
How are
lorry
you
get-"
licensing these people?
Yes.
So
And then
we can come as an objector and say,
these lorries, the ones that, they are, public interest because of safety and so on and so
It's
forth.
not just safety. Those lorries are a health hazard. If you actually just look at the state of the lorries,
Yes.
that lorry passes your estate. The estate smells garbage the entire day. So, on Thursdays,
Yes.
this is the smell we expect
And
in
this
our
is
neighborhood.
what is happening.
Yes.
McDonald,
Mhm.
if you look at the kind of cases that you're dealing with, on a monthly basis, what would you say is the biggest issue of concern that comes before you?
By a percentage of almost 60%. You see, initially licensing, especially for PSV, and general licensing was being done through the Kenya Revenue Authority, and you'll go to Times Tower to get your license and so on and so forth. So when NTSA was formed in 2012, then they moved all those functions to NTSA and the data. Now, in the process of moving that data, if they didn't find your information in the
What TLB?
TLB and so on and so forth, then they'll assume that you got your license in an unscrupulous manner, or it was not the correct one because they are not getting your data. But you see, maybe it can be in the transition of the data. Data might have been lost. This thing is being done by humans. There can be human error. So the idea was, if they didn't find your information, then your license is not valid. And then that is the majority of the cases that we hear. Then the other thing is that there is a bigger requirement or public interest to take into if you are taking a PSV license Class A. So many people will get their license, but minus the Class A, which was for PSV. So many people also come to complain to us that I previously had a license that
could
had
drive
Class
a
A,
matatu.
but now when they're giving me the digital, they have removed Class A. And when I go to inquire, they request me to go back to driving school so that I can be able to be given. And to get Class A, you must have driven for 4 years, you make an application, and so on and so forth. So that's by far the number one majority of the cases that we are. The second.
But it sounds like this is just an issue of people not getting the information. So if there's a regulation, a requirement that says this is the threshold for a qualification to have a Class A license, and people who have not had met the qualifications, if you've not driven for 4 years, if you look at your driving license, it's less than 4 years old, so you therefore just remove it immediately. Sounds like it's a lack of information.
No, I'm talking a situation whereby you have driven for the last 30 years.
For 30 years.
Yeah,
And
so
I've
your
always-
license has always had
Class A.
Class A. So one day you're going to renew, and then somebody, you have driven for 40 years, a matatu driver, and then you're being told, go back
no
to
longer
school.
do
You're
that.
like, yeah, because you are not getting this information. You're like, what? I've been renewing my license. You have given me the license yourself.
Yeah.
TLB, so what is the basis of you denying me at this particular point? So that is what we're talking about. If you've not met the requirement, then it is very, very easy. And in any case, if you've not met the requirement 4 years, it means you are applying after 2012, whereby already NTSA was in place, and therefore those requirements then suffice. The other cases that we hear that we get a lot of the times is when the Mishuki rules came, and in order to regulate the PSV sector, they did a multi-agency thing whereby they connect the data from DCI, KRA, and so on and so forth. So before you get the PSV badge or the license, they see whether you've got a certificate of good conduct. And if you don't have a certificate of good conduct, therefore you cannot be able to get a license. But so this has locked out a lot of people in that industry, the certificate of good conduct, because just the nature of that industry. You cannot be in that industry without ever being arrested by police for whatever reason, misdemeanor or some form of
There'll always be a police record.
There'll always be a police record.
Yeah.
So this is locking out a lot of youth, and now the question is, this record, the process of removing this record is a problem, because some people have already served their sentences, they have already been acquitted, the matter did not go through, was withdrawn by the complainant, but this record still says. So that means you cannot get a license, you cannot get your livelihood, and it is a system thing. So you cannot be able to move to the next step of getting a license. So these people are like condemned like forever because of this issue, and so on, because also the process of removing your records from DCI is a problem. So that's we are also getting a lot of those cases.
How does a tribunal deal with such? Because you're saying now this is a matter that falls beyond the NTSA. It goes into the security service.
Okay, that's a very, very good question, because I think in the next few weeks, in the next week or something, we are going to, once we have already printed our judgment in the Kenya law reports, we are trying to made a land, like something is going to be like a landmark decision, in the sense that we wrote a letter to the DCI, and they said that under the police, National Police Services, the Registrar of Criminal Records is just required to put the records. So it doesn't matter whether you're acquitted, it's a criminal record. And there's a process. Once you're acquitted, you have to go and get it out. For them, they give you the record. It's now up to NTSA to decide whether
what to do with the record.
it. Secondly, there's a question of this issue of police clearance record was brought as a result of Chapter 6 for public jobs. So does it apply to private? Does it regulate? Suppose I want to employ you regardless. And sometimes I would have done a crime that is not related, that is not related with with the driving. You get my point? Maybe
the
Integrity is integrity.
Yes, the problem with the crime is it may not be related, but if this person has a tendency to be a criminal, you may be giving them an opportunity now
To live out.
to practice a new crime.
Okay,
yes.
Yes, I get. So
yes.
the thing is, once you get this information, it is up to the private person to determine. So what we stated is that our concern was mostly on the people who, let's say, they have already served their sentences. 7 years, that crime was done 10 years ago, 15 years ago. The case was never completed. It was withdrawn. Those are the people now we are dealing with. So for crimes that are still outstanding, NTSA has got a right to give other administrative for the purpose of public interest.
Okay.
But when somebody has already served their crime, then they should also make it in their system in such a way that on a case-to-case basis, they can be able to allow somebody to continue their life. So we were looking like it's like double jeopardy. I mean, although double jeopardy does not work in administrative matters, but it is like you have already been punished criminally, but now you're being punished administratively by being denied for life, for being denied a license. So we wrote to DCI, we involved the director, and we agreed that on a case-to-case basis, they can be able to do their system in such a way. They ask you, do you have a pending matter in court? What was the matter? Have you been acquitted? So that if you have been acquitted, for how long have you been acquitted? Do you have any other consequence? If that is the case and you have already reformed, then you should be given a chance to continue their life. And this time, maybe it's just a makanga or a driver who maybe that is their only livelihood. So we are seeing a lot of those cases, especially from the youths around the country, who have been locked out of the only job that they know simply because of that requirement of the certificate of good conduct.
Can you make compelling recommendations to the NTSA as a tribunal?
Yes. What we do, like in this case, we did a meeting with the director and we discussed all these things, and there's a minutes to it, and we agreed that they say that this was an internal process brought by the multi-agency. They are going to tweak their system so that at least they look at the matters on a case-to-case basis.
Are your decisions binding on the NTSA?
They are binding. We have had a very, very good relationship between NTSA and ourselves. And because you see, again, we are complementary. Otherwise, people will be taking them to court. You get my point, if there was no tribunal. So we work as a team, we are complementary to each other. And therefore, when we make, for example, sometimes you just find the issue is very small, where maybe there's a problem of the data or maybe they overlooked something, they comply. Most of the cases, and I've never had a situation whereby they have appealed our decisions and so on and so forth. So they comply in most cases. Like in this case, most of the recommendation came from the director, and they agreed to look into their systems so that they can allow people, at least those who have been acquitted,
It still sounds like it's at the discretion of the director of NTSA, and some of these things sound like natural justice issues. Like you've said, why not come up with a policy within NTSA or regulation that say, if you have served a sentence and then you have been out for, let's say, 6 months, then we shall give you the license, irrespective of the fact that you have a sentence. Because it sounds like, the director could look at, murder.
And based on that,
this is the one who, and the murder in this particular case was they were driving and then they caused an accident and the accident caused death and blah, 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 blah. And so the NTSA boss decides you will never give your license ever again. Should there be no proper guidelines on the NTSA officers that says this is how we shall deal with people who have gone through
the system?
So in one of the cases that we have dealt with recently, one of our issues was that there is no proper law that even guides NTSA to deny you a license based on your criminal record. So whatever they are doing is ultra vires, because there's no section of the law that says that if you committed a crime, you cannot get. It was an internal thing that was brought to weed out the kind of industry we had. So, and like I said, that is the beauty of tribunals, because they can bring out some socioeconomic issues that then now can be addressed through legislation. So going forward, I think now NTSA will put that into consideration based on the decision that we are going to make and say, try and deal with these issues on a case-to-case basis. Although, by law, if there's a criminal element, there's nothing that stops. For example, you are a journalist. If, let's say, you have been convicted of soliciting by false pretense, there's nothing that stops the Media Council from taking administrative or disciplinary actions against you. You cannot say that, so even if you're acquitted, they might even say that was a misconduct. I mean, how are you in that position in the first place? So you cannot claim double jeopardy on this. But however, if let's say the case was not the person withdrew or there was no evidence, then there's no need of them to continue this case, or you get my point.
Because the case doesn't exist anyway.
The case does not exist anyway. But you see, if it is something that is a misdemeanor or something that's already been recorded, there's no people don't know the process of removing that record from DCI. So when they're getting a certificate of good conduct, they'll be saying that you still have this case or this case was there. So in this case for the NTSA, you'll be stopped from getting the license, regardless of whether the case was acquitted or the matter was withdrawn. I mean, they just say that you are, and therefore your name is not clean.
And obviously you don't find this to be all right, or do you? If we're looking from a tribunal point of view, if that were to be presented as the part, if I were to bring it forward and say, look, I was denied a license on 1, 2, 3, and I have everything I need to submit in terms of evidence, and I bring it before the tribunal, how would it then look because we've just said that it's not fair, quote unquote, to judge somebody in the present on what may have happened in the past, and they may have gone through whatever reform, if that was the case. How then do you see that to be? If you can basically X somebody out from being able to operate in the future license-wise because of something that was done in the past.
Yeah, so in our case, we are not saying, we are not reviewing the evidence in your criminal case. What we are saying, maybe you present to us that, I appealed successfully, and therefore, NTSA deny me a license because my PCC is not nil, then that is contrary to natural justice. So in this case, we are going to tell NTSA, please find a way of giving this person a license, simply because the basis of him not having the clean PCC is a criminal case which is successfully appealed. That means the case was denied. So it will be wrong to deny him a license based on the same only the fact that the PCC is not reading nil. Yeah. But people also need to know that once you have finished a criminal matter and either you are acquitted, you can go back to DCI and have the process of those records being expunged from the record, from the database. Because if you don't do that, then it will still stay.
Okay. Now, if the tribunal makes a ruling based on whatever findings they have, within the judicial system, at what level is that ruling? Is it at a magistrate level, senior magistrate, high court, appeal?
Yes.
At what level is it?
Okay. So basically, if we make a ruling or a judgment, you can be able to appeal it at the high court.
So it's at a magistrate level.
It's at a magistrate level. It's like a magistrate level. So usually happen is that the high court has got what is known as a judicial review power. Yeah, and that is another conversation altogether, because people usually say that if you have a tribunal, it's like they're infringing on the rights of the courts. Separation of power, because they are being formed by the executive and so on and so forth. But the fact that the court still has got the judicial review power makes the tribunals to be under the courts. They are quasi-judicial. So they are like quasi means not exactly. So they have got similarities, but they are not. There's some things we cannot
like
do.
Alternative justice.
Yeah, like
system.
we cannot interpret the law. Like courts cannot be least parties. They cannot be parties. But a tribunal can be a party to a matter. If you take me to high court that we made a wrong decision, it will be you ex parte transport licensing appeals, but you cannot have that with a court once a court has made a decision. So there's those subtle differences, but if we make a decision and you're not happy, we become functors official, and you can only be able to go to the high court to get a review of the decisions that you have made, and so on and so forth.
When you have a case before you, what is the establishment? How many members sit to hear these cases?
So we have 5 members, a chair and 4 other members, but according to the law, 3 can make a quorum. Yeah, so, and we're also making in the process of making rules. Yeah, they've already gone through public participation, whereby there's some matters, like for example, to certify a matter urgent, one member can look at the matter and say, this matter is urgent, let's hear it. So in those kind of cases, one member can be able to say, but that is not still in the rules. As it is, we have 5 members,
3 to
one
make a
chair,
quorum.
and then 3. And
So
like
it can only be one panel.
can only be one panel. Yeah.
Should this number be increased so that at least you can have more panels? I mean, you're talking about going to 47 counties.
Like the tax appeals tribunal, they've got 15 members and 3. So that means that each and every given time, all the members can listen to 5 cases. But for us, like the energy tribunal, the chair has to be part of the panel. For us, that's not the case. Any 3 members can form a quorum. Yes.
What's your caseload now? I mean, of course, everything seems to have a backlog. Or would you say that up to date current cases?
The caseload actually is coming out because of finances. Because now because of it is under the judiciary fund. And of course, we have had this conversation all along that, resources are not unlimited. So the judiciary look for money, will ask for this amount of money. They're not given the full amount of money that they have asked for. And therefore, the amount that goes to tribunal, the tribunals are many. So as much as you'd like to listen to many cases and the fact that you're limited, you're limited because of the salaries, the sitting allowances, and so on and so forth. But our caseload is quite high. We listen to, right now we are listening to almost 10 cases in a week. What we are doing now is that we try to gather as many cases in one place. Like Kisumu now we have 10 cases. So when you go to Kisumu, we listen to 10 cases. When we went to Naivasha the other day, we listened to 4 cases pertaining to Naivasha. But you see now, for us to get those number of 4 cases, maybe it might delay a little bit. But this is because of the financing issues and so on and so forth. But our caseload, I can say, we listen to almost 10 to 12 cases in a week.
What qualifications do the members of this tribunal have? What must they have? What are they required to have?
That's a very, very good question, because it's a question that brings controversy, or at the same time, it's a good thing. So the reason why people go to tribunal is because of the informal nature. So, for example, in a matatu industry, we can even get a matatu driver who has been experienced.
Nice.
We can get a former mayor who is like our former chair is who has done a lot of work for the tribunal. Mr. Dikwaweru was a former mayor. So he comes with a lot of experience on the matatu sector, because before that, they were the ones who came up with these routes and whatever, and has dealt with those stakeholders and so on and so forth. But there is so many situations whereby people think there have to be some lawyers in it and so on and so forth, but it is at the moment it's at the discretion of the appointing authority to determine who can be able to sit in the board.
And that's the Cabinet Secretary for Transport.
Yeah, that's the Cabinet Secretary for the Transport.
Tuongelesha Kipchumba.
Yes.
Thank you very much, McDonald, for coming.
Yes.
McDonald Oduor is the acting chairman of the Transport Licensing Appeals Board. It's a tribunal that deals with all matters of licensing in the transport sector, and he's been here with us today telling us all about this. People who'd like to get in touch with this appeals board, you go to their offices. What's your website? Actually, the easy one is to talk about the website.
We are under the judicial website, and then you go to tribunals.
Website. Under the tribunals, you'll find them there, and we'll post their contacts and the numbers on our social media, so anybody who'd like to get in touch with them can get them there. Asante sana for coming.